The second installment. Throughout this essay, the person in question is going to be referred to as either the narcissist or the emotional and financial abuser. I want to go much further by calling her a heartless, nasty, gold-digging so-and-so, because she had employed sexual intercourse as a commodity, but so shockingly unlike an explicit escort, decided instead to sell it. She eventually admitted referring to it, to sex, as a service, covertly, even suggesting that she, a proven narcissist, had treated and serviced me well, even without my permission or consent, when there was no need to hide what she had done anymore, or what she, an emotional abuser, was anymore. The sex, implicitly without my consent, siphoning slowly under the misrepresented guise of a supposed loving relationship, but that would be just to call her out on that, destructive, derogatory, and divisive, would not it? Unbeknown to I, at the time, the narcissist, with absolutely no dignity under the radar, abused my trust, was somehow able to make me lust after her and make love to me lovelessly, without any emotion or any connection, soliciting sex with me in exchange, coldly, in exchange for not agreed freeloading, the freeloading of food, gifts, and accommodation. This financial abuser had expected I to cover all the bills. At no time did she, a well-paid professional, have any intention of paying anything back to me, causing all sorts of psychological, emotional confusion, cognitive dissonance, anger, madness, undeniable, resentfulness and hatred, all before a mental breakdown, in which I nearly lost everything, including my self-respect, identity, and confidence, and all caused by a lack of system, justice, and closure. I'm still waiting. Leading on to deduce what this narcissistic game actually meant. The narcissist's endgame objective, with outright financial abuse, indirectly causing excruciating psychological trauma. Please watch for exactly what she did. https://YOUTU/BE//HZ9YDRFVI. I only wish that I had known all of this about the undignified emotional abuser beforehand. The emotional abuser was nothing more than a fake, lying user. If I knew of her intentions back in December 2017, I would have cut her off immediately, never to communicate with this despicable human being ever again. I do not want to be uncivil and impolite, even if it is justified. unforgivable towards a mildly sadistic fraudster, scammer, skank, and con artist. Like everyone, what I perceive of myself depends upon internal and external variables. One often leads the other in forming an overall self-image, with all emotional roads leading to self-esteem, input, and confidence progression. If I am talented and capable, I should naturally feel positivity, and with that happy aura surrounding my soul and spirit, it should affect surrounding people in a positive, pleasant way, with the only exceptions of jealous and envious types. I should know this from feedback, vibes, and attitude. But what happens when someone narcissistic, masking their true evil personality and intentions, steps into the fold of my life, pretending to love me and want to be with me? Well, this bad, evil individual thought of nothing, but extracted a narcissistic supply from I, and from the very start did not care one way or the other about my life, feelings, or mental state. For a nurse, that's a bit strange, even bizarre, wouldn't you say? Out of love, many months later, it was realized that the narcissist had been treating me with the excuse of being in between jobs, no more than I was, for being useful, an object for money, purposefully refraining from positive feedback as she did encouragement or emotional support, because she knew that I was in love and depended on her. I was, at the time, acutely aware that she was treating me badly and could see what was happening, but my mind wishfully didn't want to look at the evidence or the red flags, and so it prolonged. And what wasn't malicious became very malicious. I had previously been on my own for many months, and thus quickly got trauma bonded when the addiction for dependence grew stronger, often near solitude and loneliness. Mental solitude anyway. This is very difficult to break out of again. To be so dependent on someone after being alone for so long, especially with a charming, charismatic narcissist. My brain was registering love and mild hate in the first half, and then just hate, resentment and pure rage in the second. When the charm was spared by her and the abuse piled on to hurt me, of course, and break me, the narcissist had me frozen, paralyzed in an emotional limbo, and then confused, with no closure, which caught her out using typical narcissistic tactics to purposefully torture me over many months. The narcissist's version of counterfeit intimacy had influenced self-doubt, self-harm, underlying negativity, deep, dark depression, binge eating, excessive drinking, loss of motivation, not caring about my self-appearance, my appearance, and feeling physically sick all the time. After the narcissistic abuse, I was a mess. It was the discard, it was so humiliating and devaluing. While the narcissist gets high on the narcissistic supply, occur the misery and horror above. The next chapter, descending of some artwork during her second love bomb phase in July 2019-18. For example, I had sent via post some painstaking artwork to this pretending to love me emotional abuser for her to deliberately just leave it to one side and not even mention or acknowledge it. At the time, I had no idea what was going on or what she was trying to do. I didn't really want to question anything and tried to stay pleasant, polite and positive. Maybe the emotional abuser just wasn't impressed with my work, which was fair enough. But it was more insidious than that. She was deliberately ignoring my work, disapproving through ignoring. Another narcissistic game, because she really enjoyed games that involved hurting victims who believed that she was in love with them, preferably intimate victims. She loved breaking hearts, I assume. Victims who happened to be trauma bonded or so addicted and psychologically traumatized that, as mentioned, they cannot free themselves and open their eyes from the love spell or whatever it was and just leave. They freeze up, so emotionally torn apart and addicted to the injection of new company or fresh company. Just like being shot up with a drug, a love drug. The narcissist gets narcissistic supply from the pain, misery and suffering of intimate others who inevitably find it difficult to leave or escape because they are in love. But this love addiction is very damaging, as it comes with psychological, emotional and physical abuse that over time loses the initial charm, becoming more and more concentrated toxically with harm and abuse. In the end, all that remains is subtle, toxic, emotional abuse, especially with this woman during the end, where humiliation was used and devaluation. She followed the narcissistic psychotransaction just like the textbook, crucially disguised on the outside as a healthy, normal-looking relationship until later, when the narcissists, especially her, reveal their true selves and unmask. At that point, pleasure, gratification, and narcissistic supply go straight to the narcissist. Now it is realized by the victim, me, that the whole relationship was a vehicle set up to extract gifts, inflict unnecessary psychological abuse, and siphon money. Each and every aspect of this emotional abuser's narcissistic abuse cycle, from the love bombing to the inevitable devaluing process, then every eventually discarding, in no particular order, will now be described in detail. The next chapter is the start of a smear campaign or triangulation. This really happened with this particular emotional abuser, who also denied telling me the true reason why she had not visited I after moving out. The excuses had ranged from her father tracking her mobile phone to a friend in the house who she had never known a month previously, needing her attention for emotional support, which was a complete lie, of course. Then there was the illness that she just probably made up. And finally, even though I had offered to pick her up and bring her back to the house, she had argued that it would have been too far, back and forth, over and back, about 120 miles roughly. To collect her was 30, to bring her back was 30, to bring her back again to work or whatever was 30, and then to go home is 30 again. So, but this, when we first met, wasn't a major problem. Vast distances didn't seem to matter. It wasn't an issue when I was chauffeuring her around to Horsham, 75 miles away, and back again 150 miles, 4 or 5 times during the month of January and February 2018, when we were getting to know each other, or I was getting to know her fake, lying love self, the one that she wanted to present to me. This had been crucially before the emotional abuser had moved into my apartment, a big mistake. Back at the beginning of March 2018, we had only met at the end of January 2017, so you can see that it was too early anyway. Admittedly, by this time I had already done far too much for the secretly ungrateful, self-entitled, absorbed emotional abuser. In July 2018, due to the earlier Luton training for the nurse's OSCE, or Objective Skills Clinical Examination drill, she had very quickly befriended or strategically befriended fellow Filipino nurses who were on the same course, so much so that all 6 of them, including herself, had decided I was never really in the loop or updated on anything that she did really. To rent a house, being back in London, to rent a house together near their place of work, the Luton and Dunstable University Hospital. These newcomers, strangers, complete strangers a month previously to me and her, later met briefly Well, I met them briefly on 3 or 4 occasions, took precedence over myself in the narcissist's priorities to supersede whatever we were supposed to have. Whatever it wasn't a relationship anyway. The emotional abuser had practically chosen them over me because there could be much more to gain from them at the time and in the future probably. These were fellow housemates, nurses, who were given undoubted importance without question, making me feel increasingly insecure and dejected. I was getting kind of in limbo and bewildered really. Overnight, it seems. Well, actions speak louder than words. She said she loved me all the time, but then she just went off with these people, so... A red flag. Overnight it seemed that they had become these very important people in the narcissist's estimations in life, just like that. With I having to absorb these new changes to the not known at the time, fake relationships dynamic, triangulation. She was talking about them to me, and then she was going back to them and talking about me. But never did we ever discuss what she was doing or what she had said. Triangulation, building up reputation and opinions separately to make people enemies or to cause hostility and tension. That's what she did. But it doesn't matter. I just didn't want to believe what was happening. It's just like watching a film, you know. This change of heart transpired as soon as the emotional abuser had allegedly joined their cheerful household from my humble dwelling in North London. I will refer to these fresh nurse housemates or housemate colleagues as the new supply, as I was the old supply now, the one being discarded, along with the National Health Service job start at Luton and Dunstable University Hospital. That way she didn't need me and didn't need any money, etc., but still took it and still lied about how to get it as well. I warned these nurses, who were all strangers to me, who were now rapidly turning into the narcissists' flying monkeys, accepting, supportive, gossiping followers. Overnight this happened. From strangers to flying monkeys, about her, the emotional abuser's true nature. They were buying it all. They didn't believe her true nature. They just saw her as a victim and intentions by posting. I had to, in the end, post a letter to one of the nurses that I knew. This very letter for the attention of housemate Nurse Mylene. We had had a warm exchange of views during my visit to the house, back in July 2018, stating that the emotional abuser was a proven narcissist, and for her own safety and mind to ignore her at all costs and not believe anything that she had to say, because she was a liar, or at least learn about narcissism to create enough boundaries to get rid of her as soon as possible and use and I was only trying to protect her, really. These face value people in the house, fresh start people, just didn't have any idea of her insidious nature. But for all I knew, they may have been narcissists as well, and, I was just completely wasting my time protecting narcissists from a narcissist. They were like birds of a feather. They were Filipino. They were in a new country, so there was some kind of solidarity. But whether they were narcissists or not is pretty unclear. But they still needed to know the truth anyway, as crystal, before befriending someone like that. I, at no time, warned Miley to keep my sensitive post information to herself. Unfortunately, like a typical flying monkey, groomed, pleasing, employed bunny, naive as well, she went straight back, all loyal and obedient, subservient, just subconsciously, and told the narcissist all about my empath saving letter. I only did it for her, not for anyone else, not for me. Something trying to expose or call out a narcissist to a flying monkey, a sympathizer, an unwitting flying monkey at that no one should ever do with a malignant, clever narcissist, as this could and did cause severe narcissistic injury to the narcissist, and later her wrath was displayed. This narcissist knew immediately, because she had groomed this particular nurse who I'd sent a post to into liking her so much so that the nurse fully believed, trusted, and supported every word and action the narcissist came out with. Everything. This emotional abuser had fooled everyone with her skillful use of wit, charm, charisma, pleasing and superficial bonding, with reinforcing, encouraging labels for useful people, like friends and brothers, sisters, and eventually family, within only a few weeks of knowing them. That was really bizarre. Like watching a film. A serious red flag right there when people make friends that quickly. As a result, it is practical to assume that we were all seduced and sucked in, primarily for this lacking scruples abuser to get an ongoing narcissistic supply from anyone gullible enough not to know who she really was. It is impossible for I to save these nurses from this narcissist's narcissistic personality disorder now. They cannot believe or accept it. It is all too far-fetched, just like the movies, because the abuser's persuasion is very convincing. Her persona is the exact opposite. The emotional abuser has the ability to purposefully deflect any suspicions or allegations through a finely tuned alter ego, also known as the innocent-looking angel act. But it is all too good to be true with the narcissist, as I later found out to my peril when I was forced to contemplate fully here in prison directly from her dishonesty. He's just kept on sleeping on the ground, and that was that. The Richmond to Kew Gardens walk. Next chapter. I had a problem with the ticket gate at Richmond Station last summer, 2018, when I was with her. I think this was written in 2019, I'm only reading it 2 years later in 2021. I think the narcissist and I, were too early for the off-peak one summer evening. But I had already tapped a gate with my Oyster card and needed to undo the process. In all the drama, I decided, being a mildly dry evening, to walk a little to Kew Gardens. From Richmond, the next station, by foot. I needed to clear my head. The platform assistant tapped the Oyster card on the exit side for I to enter again, losing money in the process, a few pound or quid. But what the hell? The emotional abuser only said of the whole time, "Look, I had to walk with you. You made me walk." Another red flag that I didn't notice. I could not believe it. I needed to get away because I had been anxious, on the verge of a panic attack with the Oyster card, and all this conceited, entitled, emotional abuser could think of was her own selfish needs. I told the narcissist that she should have taken the train at Richmond and left me. She did not reply. At least I do not remember a reply. Childishly commented on friends. Her friends. Yeah. Who had been slim in the past, but were then curvy and voluptuous, chubby and fat, if you like, if you want to be derogatory. The emotional abuser did not mention their weight in a positive or neutral light. The way she had come out with it sounded like the beginning of ridicule, judgment and contempt over and beyond stating a physical fact. It was bordering on backstabbing, two-faced bitchiness. Yet another red flag, the way that she talks about people behind their backs. Nonetheless, they all looked much healthier and better physically than her scrawny, skinny, anorexic outward appearance. Anorexic-esque, a starved, painfully thin, petite model look. Twiggy or whatever. The emotional abuser did not to this one particular Filipino doctor that she had known as a Jollibee, like the cartoon mascot icon of Jollibee. For reasons unknown, maybe the doctor, had been rather jolly and looked like a bee. I do not know. Overweight maybe. Maybe he had a large sword protruding from his buttocks. I don't know. Difficult to say. Anyway, she mentioned that she had not really connected with the Filipino doctors socially and would never have wanted a relationship with any of them. The emotional abuser told me that she had rewritten a doctor's handwritten prescription or report in the Philippines where she worked, because in the hospital that she worked at, because in her humble opinion, her handwriting was clearer and more concise to be legible. The emotional abuser told me that she would be watching, scanning, observing the doctors very carefully here in the UK, not quite for the benefit of the patients, but more to call them out if they were ever incompetent, as if it were an inconsequential game to undermine responsible authority figures. Unlike in the company of the doctors she had experienced, the emotional abuser felt really comfortable and relaxed with I, because I wasn't highly functioning and super controlled and intelligent, I suppose, but who knows. She wasn't comfortable there, not because I had been easygoing or nice, but more the emotional abuser had found it easier to manipulate, lead and control me over time with her lies and tricks. I had not been smart enough or experienced or wise enough to see her end game coming, and she knew it and was getting excited, because all of those cognitive mind games, showing off tests, were to reassure her that I had no chance of working out what was going to happen to me quick enough. And it was too late. Just like the frog being slowly boiled in the cauldron and just realizing before he can't move anymore because his legs and arms are white and cooked. Cognitively, the narcissist knew full speed of thought that I was not at her inherited, surely cognitive level, and this made her dangerous because she liked to play with my mind, knowing I already trauma bonded to her and secretly, and that meant that she could secretly continue to psycho-bully, which she did with great relish. I had been fair game for abuse, and did well, as it were, from this awful, covert emotional abuser who continually abused regardless throughout, but nobody cares, yeah. Next chapter. Cognitive doo-doo tested to be sure I was an easy target. The doo-doo test all narcissists narcissists do the doo-doo test. On leaving her room one day, I had forgotten to remember my t-shirt that I had taken off. The narcissist reminded me immediately how undermining was so debilitating. Was she trying to make a point? Who knows? Maybe because she did it more than 10 times, and any time she could, with opportunity, without my permission. Moving on. The emotional abuser had read through my bus driver application form. Going out of my apartment, she told me that the bus fare would only accept smart shoes and that I was wearing trainers, as if I did not know. This confidence eroding, undermining upset me acutely for the entire day, even though I had opted for trainers and did not care if I got the job or not. Still, it was so annoying for someone to invade my privacy, to then use that information to undermine me. She made me so stressful and anxious, and stupid as well, I suppose. The emotional abuser always had this knack of finding my phone in 2 seconds. If I could not find it or lost it, which made me think, was she hiding it or something? Again, I just wish she minded her own bloody business and left it alone. It wasn't constructive, profitable, or getting us anyway with her messing with my cognitive idiosyncrasies. The emotional abuser had total recall one day of my Oyster card reading and remembered the last tab. I mean, so impressive. And why the actual last tab had not been registered, even though I had not used it for weeks. On one Sunday morning, while I had been driving up with her to the shops, the emotional abuser knew way before that Poundland would not be opened until 11. Somehow, she must have seen the shutters down, even though we were miles away, or meters away, just couldn't see it anyway. I did not know why, but this smart ass, know-it-all, whatever, feature of her personality started to really grate, slowly driving me into a very emotional rage. And so bad it was that I refrained from seeing my daughter that day and had to cancel our swimming appointment. The emotional abuser did not seem to give a damn and just carried on hurting me with the constant destructive undermining, over and over for reasons unclear. This narcissist could clearly see how much her undermining was affecting my self-esteem and confidence, but never stopped because this woman is an emotional abuser that is highly addicted to abusing. She gets a high and she gets endorphins rushing in her brain every time she abuses someone. Another chapter, the bottom line. Under the guise of a fake relationship, narcissist directly and indirectly, financially, emotionally, and physically abused me as much as she could before arrogantly denying everything she had done, taking absolutely no responsibility. Then, practically for her, she discarded me and conveniently moved on to her job and new friends, leaving me in the past to pick up the emotional pieces. Nearly there. Let's see. Are we doing quite well? Okay, nearly finished. Then, probably, like other victims here and in the Philippines, the emotional abuser forgot about everything without any closure, like we had never met, in a bid to no doubt burn my soul inside out. I was suddenly like a stranger to her. All these convenient, superficial, false excuses as to why and how the relationship collapsed, when it was eventually understood to be nothing more than an emotionless transaction for her. Just like that, it was over when it suited this emotional abuser. I no longer existed in her world. Just like that. How is it possible, I thought? Cold, dark, narcissistic thought processes in this emotional abuser immediately make estrangement an instant reality when there is no longer any use for an individual. The final violation was this financial abuse, which still has not been resolved to this day, the end of June. In fact, it's June. Let's see, the 29th, at 3:15, 2021, and it still hasn't been resolved to this day, due to a blue-pilled sort of an overprotector of women. Just the whole idea of traditional marriage is stopping me getting my money back. Probably a systematic failure. Just expecting me to pay for everything in a chauvinistic kind of knight in shining armour sort of way. Just the whole values and beliefs system is wrong for this century. Just, I wasn't married to her, so I don't know why the system was so hard on me. These are exactly what he told me, and now I know that he's blue-pilled. The man told me that they weren't gonna give back my money because of this. Just why, I don't know. I was owed £2,000 in the course of knowing her, the narcissist. But he told me I must have had a good time. This is the probation officer, a blue-pilled man, telling me crap, rubbish. It only works for a decent person, it doesn't work for a narcissist. She, the emotional abuser, had not been a prostitute or a covert overt prostitute. Certainly not a visible one anyway. Let's see. So yeah, this is how other people try to twist the truth, you see. Which doesn't help. I can't find where I was, I just lost where I was now, damn it. I don't care, I have to keep reading because I'll never finish it otherwise. Never mind, I'll get better at it, I suppose. So anyway, so she doesn't owe me the money. She didn't emotionally abuse me. She wasn't a prostitute. And then he told me, if you continue to claim, try and get your money back. It may be considered eventually a form of stalking due to possession and obsession and so on, yeah. And then he asked me if I was, just as before, I went to the magistrate and I stood in front of a judge to be sentenced. He said, are you ready to go to prison? The judges may still send you. They want to prosecute. All they were looking to do was to prosecute, not to give me justice. Looking at the narcissist's obvious love bomb letter now, he said, this blue-billed man in his 50s, who was happily married, said, oh yeah, you can see that she's broken up with you, yeah, that's the vibe, and you should have known what that meant. So that was the meaning, like a Dear John letter, breaking up. Yeah, Dear John letter. It certainly was nothing like a Dear John letter. The guy was just talking rubbish to me, expecting me to accept his narration or else. That would have been excellent if it was a Dear John letter, but it wasn't. It wasn't a closure. No. The narcissist was clearly encouraging me to continue the fake relationship. Obviously, I never did understand that court probation officer and gave up trying after he had told me to forget about hospital or ambulance work even, adding to completely just never to go back to Luton ever again. Just to leave out Luton for the rest of my life, along with any jobs that might be linked to it or go through it. This probation officer was starting to become a bit of a pest, but I bit my tongue and got through what he had to say, and eventually he stopped, but not before asking about any future relationships and assuming that all of this, the turmoil, strife and scandal had only come out of my need for ultimate control or something. No. It came out of getting narcissistically abused and then a need for only justice, not revenge. Why would I need to control her? That would have been futile. Control was never something that I found useful or desired with anyone. If she wasn't happy, she could have just left any time. The narcissist, on the other hand, had lost control of me. After purposefully promising, then avoiding to pay then getting her friend zoning instantly rejected. I would not be a beta bloke or a simp to be friend zoned by a narcissist. When I found out and started rightly to expose her to the world as a narcissist, email evidence forcing the narcissist to hastily break up. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did. I know. temporarily gagging eye, and at the same time never financially restoring the balance. Hacker, no closure. Just narcissistic torture all the way. Maybe I had been her Gary up to that point. Maybe she owned me up to that point. Property of her without even knowing it. A narcissist. That is a bit harsh to call her that. A gold digger. The probation officer said he was such a blue-pilled protector of women. She, the narcissist, could have taken much more from you, he said. But she chose not to. This man was so sex-biased. This probation officer brainwashed knight in shining armour to save any damsel in distress. Because, obviously, they are the victim, narcissist, or otherwise. This was completely absurd. What did he know about the alleged victim? He was just generalising. All women to him were victims of men, or violence of men. It had been obligatory for I to soak up all of his illogical nonsense to avoid unfairly going to prison for next to nothing. I did not argue with him or say much against his terribly biased traditional viewpoints, but for the record, the narcissist could not take any more supply because she had become exposed as a narcissist, giving her immediate narcissistic injury, something similar to you, because of the statement. Yeah. Something, okay. Because of the completely false statements describing excessive violence described. I'm just explaining just why I was gonna get, even though the statement was completely false, but there was excessive violence described in the statement. So it was a high band category for punishment, so even though she lied. So I might have been sent to prison for up to a year, just for breaching with an email. But he said he was going to push for the community service with some other alternatives. He told me I've never been in trouble with the law before, so that was a good thing, and have agreed to discontinue the small court claim, which was wrong. Yeah, it was wrong. Totally wrong to discontinue. But he liked that. Be best to provide proof of this, he said to me, to show the judges on the day of your hearing that I stopped the small claim.